If I had to choose just one vitamin or mineral to take for the rest of my life, hands down, it would be magnesium. It's my ride or die when it comes to women's health because it does so much. Better sleep, improved hormone production and metabolism, calmer moods, improved detox, you name it, magnesium's got a hand in it. And after 430 episodes, I've never done a show dedicated to this magical little mineral until now. So today I brought in the magnesium guy, someone I've personally followed and whose products I've used religiously for over 5 years. Wade T. Lightheart. Wade is a total powerhouse. He's a certified sports nutritionist advisor, president and co-founder of BiOptimizers, and a longtime natural bodybuilding champ. He's competed in the IFBB Mr. Universe, won the INBA Natural Olympia, and at 50 years old, came out of retirement to win again. This man knows his stuff, and today he's breaking down why magnesium might just be the most important mineral you're not getting enough of. So, welcome back to the show, Wade, because we've had you on before, which we figured was maybe over 6 years ago now.
Right? Yeah, time flies when you're having fun. Thanks for having me
Yeah.
on.
Well, I know that you are the magnesium guy because I take your magnesium and I've taken your magnesium for over 5 years. And it's like, it's by far one of the best on the market because you have multiple different types of magnesium in your product, which you don't find that. And we'll get to, what's all in there. But let's first start with what are the signs, first of all, of magnesium deficiency, and particularly in women? Are we going to get different symptoms than what a man would get?
Yeah, great question. So I'll go back in time a little bit to kind of preliminary explain to why magnesium is so important. First off, it's in over 300 different transactions inside of the body, a lot of enzymatic activities. And enzymes are the transformers and precursors of a lot of elements. We started out in digestive health,
Yeah.
understanding because I had ran into digestive health issues after my first Mr. Universe contest, and we worked on that and figured out how to fix the gut, and then got that figured out. And then years later, when I was an entrepreneur, was in the entrepreneurial space and working three different companies at the same time and living all around the world and all this sort of stuff, I burned out. And for me, and this is actually similar to other people. Now, I was taking magnesium. It was one of the elements that I was taking
Hmm.
because I'm pretty robust and thorough about all the nutritional supplements. But I hooked my brain up to an EEG at the time because I started having racing thoughts at night. And I think women are particularly more subjective to negative emotion and negative thought process. But I had gotten
Hmm.
into this space, which is not something I'd ever experienced before in my life. Like
Wow.
I don't really experience those things. And then suddenly I'm not able to sleep because I'm in these negative feedback loops of, my brain running thoughts and this type of thing. The other thing was I became hypersensitive to caffeine. So if you're
That
relying
happened
on
to me.
caffeine to get you going and you start getting the jitters or you start to like, well, getting anxious feelings or really hyper or shakes of any type from caffeination suddenly,
Yeah.
that's a good indicator. Um, the other element is my cortisol levels high. So for me, that meant all of a sudden you started bloating in the belly area. So high cortisol, you'll get bloating in the belly for guys. For example, women might find that they're holding retaining water in other areas, their hips or thighs, or also bloating. So those are elements. But when I hooked myself up to an EEG, because one of the other elements that was happening is I had memory loss, short-term memory loss, and I've been blessed with a very good memory, probably on the extraordinary side, like far as
Oh,
remembering things from way
lucky.
back in the past and time and things like that. It's less, and suddenly I had lost that ability, and I'm not that old. I was in my 40s, and I'm like, man,
That's
am
old,
I
Wade.
losing my brains? Well, I hooked myself up to an EEG, and an EEG basically takes a picture of your brain and can see what's happening, oxygen, blood flow, and things like that. And I had the brain of a 70-year-old man. I had low electrical activity, low oxygenation. And so then I did some blood work with a naturopathic doctor. And guess what? One of the elements that was missing was low magnesium. I'm like, low magnesium? I'm taking magnesium. How's that even possible? So that led me on to a deep dive into the magnesium world where I looked at virtually all of the different magnesiums and read all the research and then bought all the magnesiums and then started looking at super physiological dosages. Like, so what happens if you take a lot of it at once? When do you
Yeah.
get the runs? You break, it was called breaking the
Yes.
GI barrier by orthomolecular nutrition. And which is treating the symptoms of disease through super saturation of minerals. It was developed by Abram Hoffer and Dr. Linus Pauling and Dr. David Hawkins. Back in the 70s, they were treating psychiatric conditions with that. And blood flow and magnesium is a big element. So magnesium is a vasodilator.
Hmm.
Turns out magnesium is a precursor to a lot of the neurotransmitters like serotonin that makes you feel good in your brain, you know, and it's also involved in these enzymatic transfers for hormone formation or hormone function. And you get into the magnesium thing, and you go, okay, well, why am I not getting enough from this magnesium product? Well, as we found out over a tremendous amount of research in our work, by the way, we have a university called the Birch International University in Bosnia. And we have like 20 PhDs and master students. In fact, I was just on the conversation with them. They're over, Matt, my business partner, is over there right now with the team. And we have an amazing facility. And basically, we're able to do an infogest test, which tells if a product gets across the bacteria stream, what kind of elements the bacteria produce when you take something,
Yeah.
and found out that when you add magnesium, it completely transforms what your microbiome takes, what it does. So your bacteria will form up different things. It'll produce in different phytonutrients. It'll produce a whole array of antioxidants, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So now you start getting all these. Then there's elements of nerve transmission, pain that people have, or restless leg syndrome, or these elements, deficiencies in magnesium. You keep going, heart function, the firing aspect, muscle spasms. So muscle spasms, for example, magnesium is involved in the relaxation response. So if I contract my bicep here, my tricep has to relax. And the way the channels work, I need magnesium in order to create the relaxation of the antagonist muscle group. So
Okay.
what happens when you don't have enough magnesium? You'll cramp. Well, for a lot of women, one of those cramps that they'll experience, which is not maybe muscular element, which is PMS cramps.
Yeah.
So cramping that they'll receive from those type of things. All sorts of pain. Pain is also a blockage of transmission, and magnesium is involved in the transmission of electrical signals. So you have all these cascade effects. Well, it turns out too that when you look at different magnesiums, they seem to be taken up by different parts of the body. So when we did our early experiments, we tested them individually, then in combinations, then in multiple combinations. And that's how eventually we came to magnesium breakthrough to hit the full spectrum of magnesiums. We have a theory that they get taken up by different parts of the body because of the molecular size. We don't know. It's a theory.
Okay.
But we do know that we're able to produce way better results when taking a multi-strain in magnesium than you could if a single or a couple strains or whatever. That's for sure. The anecdotal research supports it. We're not sure what the mechanism is, but we continue to test magnesium breakthrough against everything out there in the market, and we continue to upgrade and integrate it, improve it, and still today no one can compete with it. So that's our whole journey on magnesium.
Okay, so let's talk about then what types of magnesium are in there because I mean, I get that question so often in my group is what kind of magnesium should I use? And we always have heard it's, oh, in the functional space is you want magnesium glycinate, threonate, malate, but then these other ones like citrate, oxide, magnesium oxide, are ones that you're not going to absorb. Don't bother taking them. And so, are those part of the seven that you have in there? And why do you have them in there if they're known to not, like, if they don't absorb? But
Yeah.
you're
So
saying that maybe collectively together it does something
correct.
different.
Correct.
Okay. I didn't
So
know that.
when you're dealing with particular magnesiums, there are beneficial components to pretty much every magnesium that is unique to it. And then
Okay.
there are elements that are concurrent. In other words, and then there's a third category is which I would say is we don't know because the research that was done, the researchers didn't get too depth into the different types of magnesiums. They were looking for a particular thing and happened to use orotate or bisglycinate or whatever. And that became de facto association with those particular proof elements. So you always have to look at study design will
Yeah.
also indicate study results, and you may come to erroneous conclusions because of that. That's why we have a lab to move away from the truth to effective truth. So truth is there's a lot of assumptive natures to the parameters that are built into a study that get validated as truth, but are not absolute truth, which you can never totally get to. I hope I didn't lose people on that, but I've been thinking about these things a long time because
Yeah.
we've been under this misidentification about science. So if we look at COVID, they were saying the science is settled. Well, anybody that says that obviously is not following the scientific method. The scientific method is I have a hypothesis. I try to disprove that hypothesis through the scientific method. In other words, I have the humility to prove that I only have a working model, but I'm trying to continuously disprove that model in the hopes that I can refine and make a better model because absolute truth isn't possible, but we can pursue towards it. And so science is never settled. It's
Yeah.
always
Agreed.
it's a way of looking at the world. So we're able to control that. And I think that a lot of the institutions and a lot of the organizations that we're relying on for truth and information or determination have all of these biases built into it. And, you know, for example, to get research funding, for the last, I don't know how many years, you have to write a DEI element. Well, what does that have to do with magnesium? And if I don't do that, I don't get funded. And so what gets funded gets research, and what doesn't get funded doesn't get research. And then that trickles down into what your doctor or your naturopath has available to them for validatable research. So you got to go above them. If you really want to make something, you want to change the world, you want to make better stuff. We realized we needed to bypass that, take what we had and go beyond it by exposing those biases to determine how do we get to something that's even more effective. And thankfully, we have a great facility and a lot of really smart people that do it. We bought them awesome equipment so that they could, figure these things out. And we learn stuff every single week about what we're doing in the company, which is great. So that's pretty awesome. So we can get into the elements. What
Hmm.
I can say, we've done 4 different versions now of
Okay.
magnesium breakthrough. So we've continued improvement, and then drum roll, in the future, we're going to be releasing some new molecules that we've made in magnesium. So we've invented new magnesium bonds.
Oh, what? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Wow. Good on
So
you.
that's really exciting.
That's very exciting.
Address one particular element, which we'll talk about. So
Okay.
going back, so if you get into some of the magnesiums,
Yes.
so when you talk, we brought up citrate as first.
Yeah.
A little bit of citrate is great. A lot, a little bit more than a little bit of citrate is not great.
Yeah.
That's
Because
what
then there's
our
diarrhea,
research.
right?
Correct.
Okay.
However, for a lot of people, they don't have enough water in the intestinal tract, and that's what creates a variety of problems, inflammatory conditions or constipation or things like that. A little bit of citrate's great, not too much, because it draws water into the intestines better than any other magnesium product. The problem
Okay.
is magnesium citrate is really inexpensive in the realm of magnesiums. So a lot of people use magnesium citrate and then people get the runs. And then you're right. They don't get the magnesium absorbed because it all gets flushed out of the system really quick. You mentioned glycinate. The technical term would actually be bisglycinate.
Mhm.
And where that's been particularly well known is around high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, osteoporosis. You know, the heart guys are really into this one in particular because of some of the elements around blood pressure and heart function, migraine headaches, depression, these things. Why? So, again, magnesium helps produce serotonin. Magnesium is a vasodilator, so anyone with high blood pressure has the potential to reduce that if they're having constriction. So when you go back to my earlier elements of when I wasn't getting my brain, I was losing my brain, what was
Ah.
happening is the stress. I'm using caffeine and stimulants to keep myself going. I'm creating vasoconstriction. That vasoconstriction is cutting off oxygen supply to the brain. The cells aren't getting oxygen. They don't have enough energy in the ATP cycle. Therefore, they're not able to remember what was going on or have the electrical activity involved. So a lot of people's brain loss or forgetting things or forgetfulness that happens, and you see this happen particularly as people go through menopause and premenopause and stuff like this, these
Hmm.
elements that forgetfulness comes in. A lot of it is related to oxygen getting to the brain. And typically, if you have high levels of cortisol, you trigger the hormonal cascade, the suboptimal hormonal cascade. And then on top of that, you start getting another thing, vasoconstriction. Oftentimes, you'll need more stimulants. You're not sleeping as well. Then you're not getting oxygen to the brain. Then you're becoming forgetful, emotional dysregulation. Okay, all that starts to happen. So there's step down events
And
that you got to go
glycinate's one of
upstream.
the not all of them will cross the blood-brain barrier. Is that right?
Well, that's a great debate.
Okay.
So it's a great debate. So the proven element to get magnesium across the blood-brain barrier is threonate. There is one issue though. Now, in order to commission the studies around does something get across the brain barrier, you have to spend a lot of time, effort, and money in order to do that. And in order to do that, you need probably a patented product, right? Because you want to control it. So the magnesium threonate, which we did have, I like the magnesium threonate for that reason, because it's a proven entity in that sense. So
Okay.
we had magnesium threonate in our initial order, but there's two sources of magnesium threonate. There's one, the company who owns the patent in the United States, and there is a Chinese version. Now, we went with the patented version because we believe that you want to reward people who have done the research and literature. The problem is that they don't allow you to use the other magnesiums in your formulation. So they initially approved us, and then afterwards we put it out, and then they went off and sued us after they approved the formula, and they have a whole formula. It's pretty dark. And
Yeah.
then they have a thing around 3 and 8 here in the United States. So even if you were to use the Chinese version, I probably wouldn't in the first place. Then that person is subject to the patent infringement.
Okay.
So the whole 3 and 8 conversation is a little bit distorted because number one, you can't use the other magnesiums. Two, you might be getting a less potent quality version of that. And three, there's some evidence that you can get other magnesiums across the blood-brain barrier. And we've just commissioned a set of studies. We've been successful in rat populations of proving we can get more magnesium into the brain. And now we're doing a human trial too. validate what we're talking about. So that's the whole threonate conversation in depth.
Okay. Oh, I
So
thought
what
it
I
was
do
in
know,
there. So I didn't know it
it
wasn't in
used to be,
there.
it used to,
Okay, so maybe
we
that's what I'm
originally,
thinking.
yeah,
Yeah.
way back in the day. So
I haven't
now,
looked
so
at it for
now,
a while.
so
So
now, but we were able to produce a better result collectively
the
than,
biglycinate or a
no,
different.
no. Well, we got a whole bunch of, well, if you use the whole stack of magnesiums,
Yes.
not any individual, the stack, you get a way better synergistic effect than any single magnesium.
Okay. Yes.
And so we'll have
Yes.
human trials to prove this. So we've proven it in rats, we've proven it in our own um, anecdotal research with people, and then now we'll have it proven in human sometime later this year. So it's kind of exciting.
So if somebody was to use magnesium citrate or oxide by itself, it's not going to get, systemic. It's not going to go through, probably to the brain. It's just going to get washed out. It's going to help you take a good poop in the morning, maybe too good of a
Hmm.
poop in the morning.
Yep.
But when you pair it with these other ones, then all of them work better together.
It's better to listen to a symphony than just a single instrument.
Yes. Yeah. Well, it's like
So
hormones too, right? Like
correct.
it's oh,
When you
they all
do
work
one
together.
thing, then there's a cascade of
Yes.
effects. Like, and that's, I
Yeah.
think this is one of the reasons why people need to have someone who's educated in a field to explain things, because the common element is people look to a product or a service or whatever, and like, what's the one thing I need to do? Right.
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
And the problem with that is it's so narrow in focus that oftentimes people's expectation to result is too high, or you've limited the full range of recovery or solutions because you've already bucketed into a one-stop shop problem. And I think that's part of the advertising world that's happened. And that's like, you just need this one thing and your life is going to be better. And your life sucks without this one thing and you got to have that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that's been conditioned into us since we were children. And so it's a model of the world. Um, it's like people think, oh, if I just had all kinds of money, that would solve all my problems. No, it solves the problems of not having money. Then we have, but it starts to expose all of the other elements. That just turn on TMZ or something, and you'll see that.
Yeah.
So we got it off track a little bit, but I wanted to kind of explain that. So you brought up something else too, magnesium oxide.
Hmm.
So let's talk. So I've got a pet peeve with the Canadian government right now with the Health Canada, because they limited the availability of our products in Canada for 3 years on this very topic. We have a unique magnesium called sucrosomial, which is a glycolipid delivery system that wraps the magnesium oxide molecule to deliver it into the system. And it's awesome. You can get so much more effective elemental magnesium to the body. The Health Canada makes you classify that as magnesium oxide because they have no designation for sucrosomial.
Oh, so
So
then,
that was a
yeah,
3 year
I'd have a
fight.
beef with that too.
We had a 3 year fight
Hmm.
with that one. We finally, so the same product is listed in United States as magnesium sucrosomal. In Canada, it's listed as magnesium oxide, which is a misnomer. So you have
Okay.
another issue on labeling. But long story short, it works, and now it's available in Canada, which is great. So that's awesome. Magnesium malate is another one that's in there.
Yeah.
This one's particularly good into the enzymes and the removal of toxic metals, the research around that. So
Oh,
anytime you can remove
like
toxic
heavy
metals,
metals.
yeah, exactly.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, so it's a good one. And that usually can help in issues of like people that have like fatigue-based symptoms,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of times those are connected with aluminum, disrupting Krebs cycle stuff and everything. So getting that malate seems to advance the detoxification of that for whatever reason. Okay. Then you have things like magnesium taurate. Taurate's really great. It kind of mimics taurine in the brain. So cardiovascular health, prevention of migraines, and overall cognitive and memory. One of the things that I noticed when I first started taking magnesium breakthrough, well, actually, it was a combination of magnesiums that we started to do to figure this out, and then we improved on the formula. But in about 2 weeks, my short-term memory came back. And I was like, wow, okay, now I'm not forgetting where I put the keys. You walk in the room with the blank stare, like, what did I come in
Yeah.
here for? I
I
was
do that
getting
all day
that. And
long.
yeah, and I don't have that anymore. Particularly because it works with the neurotransmitters within the brain. It has like a similar structure to like GABA. And that generates BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And if you want to talk about removing uh, degenerative conditions around your brain,
Mhm.
you need to be focusing on getting BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, up. I do a separate product called Mushroom Breakthrough, which has like
Yeah,
1.2 pounds of mushrooms in a serving.
I
I take
got
that
that.
every morning when I get going
Yeah.
because the BDNF production of that is really high. Same thing when you take magnesium taurate. Taurate is a really thing. So I stack all that stuff. I have my magnesium. I make my little latte in the morning.
Yep.
I make my
Same.
mushroom breakthrough latte. So I have caffeine. By the way, I have no problems with caffeine anymore. So I don't get stimmy on caffeine. And I'm a slow oxidator of caffeine, but thanks to magnesium breakthrough, I can drink all the caffeine I want and go to bed at night and not be overstimulated. It's great. And not that I guzzle it, but in the morning I do that latte and I do a coconut milk and I make my coffee and I put the mushroom breakthrough in it, so it's like a chocolatey coffee
Yes.
latte thing. And then I pop some magnesium capsules along with it and wash those down. And then I'm like golden, right? I'm feeling a-okay all day. And I have a lot of protein too. I think for women, 50 grams of protein in the morning is a good start. I do the same thing for myself. Really
Yep.
sets the brain. And I see a lot of women that are going through hormonal change when your hormonal fluctuates. And I'm older now, so I don't have the same hormone levels. I haven't gone to testosterone augmentation or anything like that because I'm still testing outside of that. And a lot of the biohacking world, they're taking all these peptides, all the growth hormone, TRT and
Yeah.
stuff, and
Yeah.
then they're raving about this product, but they're not telling you, like, I've turned my 50-year-old hormone cascade into a 25-year-old. Well, like you might want to share that that's a big factor. It's like, you know, athletes on steroids versus not steroids. It's not
Yeah.
competitive.
No.
It's not competitive. It's
No.
so you have to take those things. So I keep going down that road. I'm certainly proactive for people to use hormone augmentation when, like, get your other stuff figured out first. A lot of people just want to go right to hormones. It's like, well, work on all of these elements and then because then then as you adjust your hormones, you can really turbocharge your effects and longevity and
Works different for
durability.
women though, Wade. Just so you know. Once
Yeah,
once you once you lose your hormones, there's no healthy eating, no exercises or
I
supplement
agree.
that will bring it back.
I would agree on that, but I think a lot of people don't have any. I think let me put my point out because I see the same thing in men.
Guys, it's a little bit easier for you. Like you can bring back up your
Yes,
testosterone levels, but once our ovaries are done, testosterone, yes, we can bring up, but not estrogen and progesterone.
correct.
Hmm.
Um, what I'm saying is a lot of people will go to that to fix, they think they can hormone their way out of a bad lifestyle.
Yes, that I agree with
That's what I'm saying. It's
100%.
like
Yes,
straighten
yeah,
out the
yeah, yeah.
lifestyle and then the
Yeah, you
hormones
can't
are just going
slap
to
on your hormones and
turbocharge.
think that's going to make it everything okay. You still got to do all the
Correct.
foundational pieces.
Correct. That was my point. And I see this with guys too. And in
Yeah,
fact,
same.
if they take testosterone and they don't have those things figured out, it can actually put them at risk for a lot of other conditions. And
Mhm.
if they don't, and they do all these other things, it reduces the same risk that it augments if you don't have your life. It's kind of bizarre. So, for example, like heart conditions and sclerosis and things like that. Well, there's great evidence that TRT, for example, really improves your outcomes. But if you're taking it and you have a bad lifestyle, you're going to accelerate the negative effects of the same thing. So it's
Yes.
really, but like, you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't think that
Yes.
intuitively. So, um, good means good within the context, and that's why they need an expert like you to go
Yeah.
by to determine all these things. Um, Orotate, that's another magnesium we've got in there. So I'm giving you all the magnesiums that we've put in
Yeah, because
the
so you've got
formula.
the malate in there, you've got the
Yeah,
okay, the
yeah,
glycinate, the
yep,
biosorbus glycinate. Okay. Everything
yep.
but
So
the
the
threonate. That's the only one
correct,
that's not in there. Okay, go on.
correct. And so orotate, this one's really interesting. The work research on it is around DNA and RNA precursors. So that's also synthesizes glycogen and ATP in your energy units. So, and it's also used when you hear a lot about the athletes who end their careers because of heart irregularities and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Magnesium does seem to be a big element on that side of things. And so it's a big factor. Um, Another element to that too is calcium absorption in magnesium. When I was early in my magnesium journey, I actually took intravenous magnesium,
I've done that lots.
and you might have experienced this. Whenever you have wherever you have calcified tissues, you'll start to feel a burning sensation, like it'll be a burning.
Oh,
Yeah, so I was taking
trying
pretty
to
high
think.
dosages. I got up to about, well, I won't even say on the podcast because it might get me in trouble, but it was pretty high dosage.
I've done very high dose too.
Systematically,
Yeah.
like you get all the wobblies
Oh
after,
my
and
God, you're like you're lying
yeah,
there and
yeah,
with your IV chair, like trying so hard
yeah.
not to fall asleep.
So what was interesting for me is I started to notice heat, burning sensations where I had
Yeah.
calcification in tissues.
Oh,
So magnesium
interesting.
and calcium work in a 2-to-1 ratio, and they offset each other. And so if you don't have enough magnesium in the
So
body,
you
your
need
body
two
will.
times the amount of magnesium to calcium,
No, it's
or the
two
other
to
way
one
around.
calcium to
Okay.
magnesium. The thing is we get lots of calcium in our diet and very little magnesium. So we're at a
Mm,
disproportionate and we calcify tissues. And so when you start taking magnesium, it increases pliability and stuff like that because now you can start to bring down your calcium levels. Otherwise, your body will start dumping calcium, which leads to osteoporosis type conditions. So when
okay.
women jump off, when their estrogen crashes,
Hmm.
you start to see massive amounts of magnesium and bone loss, which is
Hmm.
very dangerous. And that's to me the real reason why women want to really make sure they have their magnesium, and the real reason why they
Hmm.
need to do strength training. They need to
Yes.
do strength training,
And yeah,
and
absolutely.
yoga and
Non-negotiable.
all these sort of things. Don't cut it. Like you need to
No.
put weight on the bones because that's what stimulates them to grow. There's a whole organization called OsteoStrong.
Yep.
They've actually reversed. They've reversed bone degeneration in virtually every age group that you can imagine through. They do particularly special movements with very high weights and low ranges of motion so that they can get the stimulatory effect just on the bones. And they've also found that if you put magnesium, you give people magnesium breakthrough, it augments their results. So because you're uptaking you're able to uptake more calcium. So you
More
need
calcium.
magnesium is the control on how much calcium you could put in your body. And we
Okay.
don't have enough magnesium in our diets, even if you're eating a perfect diet.
Yeah, because our soil's so depleted.
Soil so
Yeah.
depleted. The other element is if you're in a high EMF environment like I am here in Venice Beach, California, I'm in a soup of electromagnetic pollution. It does seem to have a restrictive element on your cells. So you need more magnesium than you would normally. And we don't know what the dosage is, but I've been on some EMF podcasts and everything, and people who are very EMF sensitive are finding, wow, I need a higher dosage of magnesium than the ordinary person. Most people, a couple caps a day of mag breakthrough is great, but you might find that you divide that dose up over maybe 1 to 4 caps, depending on how off you might feel until you get
Mm,
a subsiding of whatever symptoms you might be suffering from. So yeah, so
yeah.
I mean, I know people that can't be in Wi-Fi even. They work with the naturopath that I work with in particular, and they're so EMF sensitive they get breakouts and hives and can't think, and they have to go into really uh, interesting situations.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Then there's another element to magnesium here that I think we talked about. Let me see if I covered all these. We taurate, malate, orotate, sucrosomial, citrate, a chelate, which is a amino acid combination chelation on top of it. It's a protein compound that allows it to get absorbed and carried through the body properly. Again, some of these are used more than others. We keep the total combination proprietary. But here's a couple things that you also want to have with your magnesium in order to live it. Humic and fulvic acid, we have a monoatomic blend, so it's the whole range of minerals, which means that you absorb a lot more of it. B6 is another element which will drive more magnesium, so you get more elemental magnesium than you would otherwise. You want the elemental magnesium. And then manganese. So we put manganese in there because that keeps you from taking in too much. So if you took in too much magnesium that gave you the runs, you can offset that with manganese. If you have enough of it, it also increases the absorption. All of that to say that with all of those magnesiums together, plus these delivery agents that we've been able to prove in our microbiology lab in Bosnia, that means you get more elemental magnesium, better results for less price overall. So our magnesium breakthrough products are going to be a little bit more expensive than what you might see on your shelves, but its delivery is going to be 2, 3, 4 times more effective than if you're using a single strain magnesium out there. So you get more out of it.
Huh.
And people notice the difference. We have so many people
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
write in and say, I've had magnesium for years,
Yeah.
didn't notice anything. I took yours. I'm sleeping better than ever. My cramps went away. I don't have restless leg syndrome. What's in this stuff? And I'm like, well, it's just these seven magnesiums plus these delivery agents. And then one other final piece I'll add to this. Thank you for giving me so much space. We can get into specific questions. But when you go into developing a product, um, generally the industry goes by what's called a lab assay. So a lab assay on a raw ingredient will determine does it have any contaminants and what percentage of that active element that you're looking for is. So it could be 100%, 80%, 50%, those all different ranges. What they don't tell you is it biologically active? Does it work? Does it have these other elements? And we're able to go beyond the lab assays to find the elements that aren't revealed in the lab assay, run it through our lab because then we can see how the body actually utilizes it. And that's been a game changer because the supply chain of your raw ingredients is all over the place. And you
Mm-hmm.
have to literally check every single supplier and every single batch in order to ensure that you get both the lab assay quality, but also to go to the next level that it's bioavailable. And it's not intuitive. I've seen 100% ingredients that were useless. I've seen 20% that were more effective. I've seen all kinds of things. And so unless you have the science lab to actually work through this, get your trusted providers of the element, because most times they don't know either. It's not, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not even calibrating this to maliciousness. They just don't know. No idea.
Mm.
Yeah, so you start stacking that on every ingredient that you put in a product, and you can get 10%, 20%, 30% better per unit, and you start adding that up and up and up and up, and all of a sudden you have a far superior product. And for us, that guarantees that when you get a BiOptimizer product, it's superior in its effectiveness, it's been superior in its research, and it's been superior in its guarantee. We give a 365-day guarantee as
Wow.
well. So if it doesn't work, it doesn't blow you away from anything else, it doesn't work better than anything else, no problem. We'll just call us up, email us, text us, whatever, send a carrier pigeon. We have real
Yeah,
people that answer the phones,
yeah.
real people that answer the text, real people that answer the whoever you communicate with us, and they share with you exactly how to use it. And if it doesn't work out for you, we just give you your money back, and we have the lowest refunds in the rate in the entire industry.
Wow. Yeah, I can't imagine that somebody would want to return a product.
Well, it happens.
It
It
happens.
happens.
Yeah.
The industry typically is around 4%,
Yeah.
and we're at 0.25.
Oh, wow. Good for you
And
guys.
oftentimes it's just people purchase the wrong product. Maybe they got more than they thought they need. Maybe they were on a subscription, for example, and they really loaded up at first. And then once you get, and typically the typical user goes through a journey to get your magnesium levels up to what I find is like a full bucket, I like to say,
Hmm.
uh, probably will take you 2 or 3 months. So you might find that you need more of it to start. And I always suggest to people start with a cap in the morning and a cap in the afternoon, or a cap in the afternoon, a cap in a bed. And you can add one cap at what other part of the day. Some people just go with two caps before they go to bed and just use it for sleep and love it. Fine. But they don't realize you can benefit from magnesium throughout the day. So most ladies, two caps is going to be sufficient. If
Okay.
you're really struggling out there, I would do divided dosage throughout the day, 1 to 3 caps in a
Okay.
divided dosage. And then after 2 or 3 months, when the uh, whatever you're going through starts to go away, you can titrate down. Maybe you only need 2 caps, or maybe you're a 1 cap person. There is a bit of variance based on methylation, dietary elements, lifestyle, hormonal function, all the things that you talk about. So
Yes.
those are going to impact how much an individual needs. Like for me, I need a little bit more magnesium than the average person, simply because of methylation pathways and things like that. So I just don't, I just need
Okay.
more. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah.
And I
And we'll get
exhaust
to
more.
that about
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
methylation thing because a lot of people don't realize that magnesium is needed for that pathway. So going back to originally why you suddenly had all these symptoms from magnesium deficiency when you were going through a very stressful period. So what is it with being in stress, or cortisol production? Is it somehow depleting our magnesium if our levels of cortisol get too high? Like what's the mechanism there?
Yeah. Great question. So yeah, when, so I always call magnesium the rest and relax hormone,
Hmm.
or the rest and relax mineral, I should say. So you have to slip out of sympathetic nervous system into parasympathetic nervous to in order to get into the relax state. That's why when you go to a nice restaurant, it's nice lighting, it's dark light, they're playing nice music. It's to calm and prepare you to eat your food so that you can actually digest, utilize, and absorb it. Same thing is, it's probably not a good idea to watch television before you go to bed, because the blue light comes in there, shifts your circadian rhythm. It thinks it's wake up. There's a cortisol dump, right? Which you're supposed to have. Your cortisol is supposed to hit early in the morning to get you out of the waking state and get you up and going. And then it
Hmm.
dissipates. And then you got your other hormones coming on board. Now, which is, if you look at, say, females versus males, like for when they go intermittent fasting protocols, I don't advise women to do intermittent fasting unless they're eating first in the day. And if they're going to do it late in the
Do it
day and after.
later.
For men, it's completely reversed, because we get this big spike of testosterone, cortisol, testosterone releases, and we're off to the races and we're going out to hunt and do our thing. This is evolutionary biology.
Yeah.
For a woman, she needs to get up and nurture herself and her children from a biological aspect. And so this alleviates the rising aspect of cortisol. If cortisol stays high or gets released at different types in the day, it trips up your hormone cycle. Now, for a man, you got a 24-hour reset. All right, we screwed up yesterday. I'm back on the saddle today. Women, it's a 28-day to 35-day, like a 21 to 35, depending on where they are. Let's just say 28-day
Hmm.
for illustrative purpose, with the standard deviation off that. You could screw up your whole month because you disrupted this phase of your hormonal cycle as opposed to that phase. And now there's uh, all my lady friends are into that, like the phases that you need to be working and doing
Yes.
and
Yes.
resting,
Yes.
the different
Cycle
phases.
syncing and yeah, yeah,
There you
yeah,
go, cycle syncing,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So men don't understand this.
yeah.
They just know, oh yeah, it's crazy week now, or oh, it's tired week, and like it's because
Yes,
we're
yeah,
just run on
yeah.
this 24-hour set, like, you know what I mean? So it's so I'm not cortisol, particularly for men, there's an early morning benefit and get you going, but for sustained levels of cortisol for women would just crash all of your hormones. It's really bad. And if you disrupt one aspect of that, say 4 week cycle, well, you just missed that. It's gone. It's not coming back for another month. So it's much more slower integration cycles than say for men.
Hmm.
And one of my pet peeves, and I don't want to speak towards women because one of my pet peeves is men talking about women's hormones. I can talk about the differences, but I don't
Yeah.
consider myself an expert on female hormone augmentation. I go to experts myself to get them to feed me that information. But these are some observations I've noticed that my lady NDs have been telling me.
Yeah. So if a woman's chronically fasting and so her cortisol
Yep.
continually is being pumped out because fasting is a stressor. And so when you're fasting, your cortisol will typically stay up. And for people that have dysregulated nervous system, this is not good. And then your blood sugar is going up too, right? So your cortisol goes up, your blood sugar goes up, and now they're both staying up because you're in this fasted state, especially if you're doing it chronically. I think, once, twice a week for insulin sensitivity purposes and to give your system a break. Yes, we should be doing some form of intermittent fasting. Like you said, maybe doing it in the second half of the day, not in the first half of the day. It does make more sense to do it like that. But
Yeah.
some women, they can't do that. So they do it the other way.
Well,
But
yeah, I'm a big fan of, if you look at what, like, say, Dr. Lyon and all those folks are talking about, they're talking about women taking protein early in the morning,
yep, yep,
getting a protein feeding early in the day, because the women oftentimes are a little bit deficient on the protein side, and they get caught up in
yes,
everything, and they're off to the race. Your phone goes, the kids blow up, whatever. Your husband's doing whatever. It's like and
yeah,
then the day's blown,
yep.
and you really got to set that. My grandmother used to say to my mom, she said, look, you got to get up before the kids. Get up before everyone else. Do your situation. Get yourself sorted out first. Because if the trigger point happens after, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
And you're in a reactive state. In reaction, including this, as soon as
right.
I
Into your
switch this
phone.
on, I'm in a reactive state, not a proactive
Yeah,
state.
yeah, yeah,
And that usually leads to higher spikes of cortisol. Now, magnesium
yeah,
can offset some of that cortisol
yeah.
release, which is nice, um, and or can mitigate too much cortisol in the system by, again, you're going to get vasoconstriction, you're going to get less oxygen, you're going to get less nutrients to the brain, less things to the brain, an overstimulation of the nervous system. And magnesium can bring you back from those elements.
Mhm. Which is fantastic. This is what we all need, us women. We need this
Yeah.
magnesium. That's like I said right in the beginning. If I had to just pick one vitamin or mineral, it would have to be magnesium because it hits on so many levels for women that are so necessary. I mean, so hormone wise, I mean, yes, we've talked about cortisol and how this can help with our stress system and our adrenal system, which I think every single woman right now is in a high stress state. We do have nervous system dysregulation because it's so normalized now that we think
Mhm.
that what we think is normal, it's like, oh, I don't have a stress problem, I don't have a cortisol problem. Actually, you probably do. And I've done a lot of testing on cortisol, and you can see it in women's labs. And more times than not, it's dysregulated. And so we know that we need this magnesium to help with that dysregulation. But when it comes to the other hormones, I know that magnesium deficiency can really show up in the hormonal system, like progesterone. We need it to help make progesterone. Like you said in the beginning, it's super important if you're somebody that gets period cramps. I mean, my daughter just this morning, she's like, "Oh, I've got period cramps," and I said, "Go get the BiOptimizers."
Right.
That's what she did. She took a magnesium because it's in like within 20 minutes, those period cramps are gone for both of us when we get them. And it's the magnesium, and it's just like it helps to relax your pelvis, and the firing of all those muscles contracting, it just relaxes it, and it's so important. But there's many other things. There's thyroid conversion. We need magnesium to convert T4 to T3. And then we also need it to help metabolize our hormones. So it is key for methylation, and we have to methylate hormones so that they're not recirculated. So things like estrogen, we make it, then it has to go through these phases of detoxification so we get rid of it rather than recirculate it. And that's phase two is we have to methylate. So how is magnesium so, like, how does it relate with methylation? Like, how does it help us to do that?
Well, I'm not a methylation expert. I go to a methylation expert. In fact, we're developing a methylation product. What I do know is that there's a variance in your methylation capabilities around your genetics. And so understanding your genetics is really critical in determining
Yeah, I
what's
think that too.
so I think getting someone who can interpret your genetics,
Yeah.
because your whole dietary strategy, your whole lifestyle strategy and everything might do. Like, I'll give you an example. Going back to the fasting component.
Hmm.
Most people who have northern genetics are able to fast easily. So if you're light skinned, light hair, your ancestors had to go through periodic periods of no food, and they can switch over to that really easy. The other thing is concordant to that in my own case. So I can fast easy. I'm fasting today, no big deal. Like, I can just switch fast. It's just kind of like, oh, where'd the extra time come for not even to do food? That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Now, if I take that, I've got some friends with Mediterranean genetics, can't do it. If they fast, all of their hormone cascade goes through the roof. They can't deliver on that at all. It's a disaster for them. So in comparison between, methylation pathways and its effect on hormones with what you're doing in your life, you really need to know your genetics first.
Hmm.
Magnesium is a contributory element to particularly RNA and DNA encryption. So that's telling those signals are going to determine what your body does. So that's where magnesium kind of steps in. If you don't have enough magnesium, those RNA encryptions aren't not going to tell your body to do the right thing. So you make a new protein, it does this, it does that. If you don't have it, the signal can get disrupted. It's really that simple from those things. And then the other element is, I think, would be a tertiary element, which is how well you can, or how upregulated, like, so for example, cramping.
Yeah.
As cramping ramps up, you're going to go to second and third uh, down regulatory features outside of your hormones. So magnesium relaxes the tissue, to give you an example. That's not a hormone related element, but
Hmm.
it can serve into these second and third elements to reduce the symptoms. If it doesn't correct the hormonal issue, it can alleviate some of the symptoms. You're still going to have to address the hormone issue, period.
Hmm. And then
Yeah.
it's also needed. There's like when you talked about there's how it's involved in over 300 enzymatic processes. One of those is for making glutathione. Magnesium, which is another, so everyone knows, phase one more so detoxification pathway, which is needed as well for hormone metabolism.
Yeah. There's another pathway too, is if it's a big factor in neurotransmitter, particularly serotonin. So,
Yeah.
so serotonin is the happy hormone.
Yeah.
So people who are, say, on depressants or antidepressants, like,
Hmm.
so like who have depressed a depressed system, oftentimes aren't able to make enough neurotransmitters, particularly like serotonin. So how does that happen? They don't have the bacteria cultures in the microbiome. They don't have enough magnesium into it. They don't have sufficient amount of amino acids or essential fatty acids in order to manufacture those hormones. Then you have a depressive state. In order to deal with a depressive state, you're going to take sugar in. Your body will crave sugar. You hit the sugar high, you get a boost in the high zone of serotonin. Then you get a subsequent crash. And on top of it, you get a cortisol hit, your hormone cascade blows out. And so, and then you keep repeating the cycle because you keep going down the depressive cycle like this. And the cravings for sugar is to augment the low serotonin levels.
Mhm.
And then and then you hit it, and oftentimes what do they serve you at your favorite coffee shop? Caffeination, sugar, fats, hits the brain, maybe a pastry with it or two. For 30 minutes hanging out with your girlfriend, you're on fire. You feel good. You deserve the treat. The
Yeah.
creamy double fat chocolate swirl, whatever macchiato
Starbucks.
amazingness, whatever that happen is, that you've got your drink with your thing. You're sitting in the coffee shop. You get the connection that you want, an oxytocin connection with your friend. You talk out what your alleviate stress. You stimulate the hell out of your nervous system to get a pump. You get a serotonin thing. You walk out of there. You come home, and something happens like an hour later, and the whole thing blows apart
Just
your
come
hormonal
crashing
system.
down around you. Yeah.
And you're like, I don't understand how my life is so screwed up. Like it was just so great an hour ago, and
Yeah,
now I'm
yeah.
like and so you have to realize is your diet is going to contribute to these cascades. Your caffeine intake is going to contribute to these cascades. The habitual patterns that you contribute. And I think a lot of people don't realize how much their diet and lifestyle impacts their hormones. Because if you release sugar today, for example, and sugar is detrimental to um, magnesium uptake, and so is caffeine
And alcohol.
and alcohol, right?
Sorry, we're
So,
so not fun. We're just like,
right,
don't
right.
drink
I know.
coffee, don't drink alcohol.
Yeah, but if you realize is those things work because they people do it because it gives you the initial alleviation of the initial problem, but it accelerates it downhill. And it's hard to take the time to go and hire someone like yourself and go through the process and clean up these other elements and give it enough time to work and get your hormones in organization. But you've got to support it. You got to support it with the right choices. You can't
I
just take a
do.
bunch of hormones or a couple caps of magnesium and offset
No,
the sugar connection binge at the local coffee shop. It doesn't work
no,
that way.
no.
So I always like to put that out there for people just because I want to be supportive and proactive, and it all goes together.
Yes.
And if you
Yeah.
stack it all together, what you can do is remarkable.
Yeah.
And it requires, people always say, what's the one thing you need? Everything.
Yeah,
Do
for
everything.
sure. Yeah.
Do everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I have like the stack of non-negotiables, and then anything outside of that, it's just icing on the cake. That's the way I say it. It's like there's things that you got to do, especially as a midlife woman, where you got to lift heavy, you got to prioritize protein, you got to get good sleep, you got to get stress reducing exercises implemented. Like there's just things that have to happen. They're the foundation, and if you
Yeah.
can't just throw a bunch of stuff on top if there's no foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. What is magnesium working on that helps us to sleep so well? Is it the serotonin?
Yeah. Well, there's also a GABA effect if you take it in the evenings as well. So the two
So is it
elements.
acting on the GABA receptors?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that seems to be the evidence. The other thing is I think for a lot of people, it also puts them into that relaxed state quicker. So when you get that, you get a deep set. You go into deep sleep faster
Okay.
than others. Now, my business partner he's always been challenged with the sleep elements.
Me
So he went
too.
really deep into this.
Okay.
And magnesium for him was a game changer for his sleep cycle. We do a sleep breakthrough product, which is kind of a more sophisticated
Wade,
element.
magnesium, yes, it's definitely one of my faves. But your sleep breakthrough, because I'm an insomniac, I've traveled
Yeah,
sleeping for 15 years. I've tried every sleep supplement under the sun, and I swear to God I have. That one is the my by far my favorite product. My
yeah,
whole
it's
family once again uses it. Like if anyone's not
yeah,
sleeping, like my 11-year-old son, oh, come on, can I have some blue drink tonight? if you can't
Yeah.
sleep because
Yeah.
it's incredible. I wake up at 2 a.m., take a little blue drink. It's my number one most recommended sleep supplement in my practice.
Oh, thanks. Well,
Yeah.
he comes from a family, and by the way, poor sleep cycles is also genetic, which is
Mhm.
ironic
Yeah, my dad's a
because Matt
horrible
and I are on
sleeper.
a, yeah, his whole family's horrible sleepers. My business partner, Matt. So he's got like $50,000 sunk into his sleep system. He's got devices and a Faraday cage and cools the temperature and a
Same.
specialized mattress and delta wave things. And he
I don't have
tracks
that
all
much,
his
but
sleep and he
yeah,
got
yeah.
all the precursors. Like he's way down that rabbit hole in the sleep world. And so, yeah, he was part of that. So for me, magnesium just made it better. I'm on the other side of the spectrum. I don't require a lot of sleep. So we used to have these
Okay.
arguments about sleep because I'm like, it's overrated, man. Like 6 hours, I'm good. I can run 3 days on maybe 2 or 3 hours, no problem, and still
Oh,
function and be coherent and do everything. And he needs like 8, 9 hours, right?
oh,
Like before him to
same.
regenerate, right? And so I realized, oh, there's a huge difference.
Hmm.
And so we're literally on the opposite ends of the bell curve of genetics around sleeping. I'm a light sleeper,
Hmm. Me
so
too.
I can wake up quickly, but I can wake up and okay, I'm good to go. I'm good, So yeah, that
Yeah.
again, it goes back to your genetics,
Yeah.
how you methylate things, what's your lifestyle, building a pattern of success around you. I like to get up early in the mornings. He likes to stay up late.
Yeah.
Right? My
Yeah.
wife, she can sleep no problem throughout the day. She can rest and sleep and be okay. If I sleep too much, I feel groggy and tired. I don't
Yeah.
like how I feel if I sleep too much. She
It
can
is
sleep,
so
she can sleep
different.
no problem. Yeah, she can sleep no problem. So it's like, okay, wow, that's interesting. I find it fascinating.
Well, for all the insomniacs that are listening out there, it's definitely a great hack to know about, which is either one. I think if you're a real tough sleeper, the sleep breakthrough is needed. But if you're that person that finds it very hard to calm down to go to sleep, or you're the 2 a.m., 3 a.m., you wake up and you're wide awake and your cortisol's flipped on and your brain starts going immediately and you're like, no, no, can't get back to sleep for an hour, 2 hours, or if at all, then either try first just taking a magnesium, the magnesium breakthrough, or you try a scoop of the blue powder, the sleep breakthrough powder. And I tell you, it works every time.
I did test it. Because I do the sleep breakthrough myself, and it doubled my deep sleep.
Amazing.
So I
I
tested it
should
and
pay
it doubled
attention
my
to
deep sleep.
that.
Yeah, you
I
look
didn't
at
pay attention to
that's
it.
the big one. The big benefit on that one is the deep sleep. I find a lot of people that's not getting, and that's your regenerative recovery. So
Yeah. I have a
yeah,
hard time getting
we
into
started
deep.
this, Matt was getting no deep sleep at all. He was sleeping 9 hours. He was getting no deep sleep. Now
Yeah, that's me. Yeah.
he's about a 2 hour deep sleep. And the regenerative aspect on your hormones and stuff is
So
huge.
good.
So we're going back to
Yeah.
hormones, deep sleep. That's where you regenerate your hormone cycle.
I'm gonna try that because I typically am the into a I'll try it if I can't get back to sleep. So I'll get up and just take it in the late in the night. But I'll look because my deep sleep is always I'm always in the red. Like my ring will tell me, oh, you're it's always like not enough deep sleep. I'll get maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour
Mhm.
tops, but
Yeah,
I'll try that. Yeah, yeah.
try it and
There's a
test
lot
it.
of glycine in that product, which I think is what makes it stand out from
Yeah,
these other products.
yeah,
That's the difference I could tell in it is that it's got a good dose of magnesium and it's got glycine in it and a high dose of glycine. And that I think is what's doing it for me anyways, like why it's like
yeah.
working better than
Glycine's a
others.
really interesting. That's a really interesting element.
It
Yeah,
is. I've heard
it
like
is.
weird things about glycine. Like glycine can help detox heavy metals out of the aluminum, I think it
Yeah,
is.
yeah, and it puts water into intracellularly,
Mm.
like into the cell, as opposed to outside of the cell. And I think there's a whole. I get really into hydration. So bodybuilders used to use glycine in order to hydrate this tissues while they were dehydrating their bodies for
Okay.
stage presentation. That's when I first started to learn about its repartitioning effect. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so as I got into water and hydration, I started to notice all these other elements about osmotic pressure and getting stuff into the cells. And most of the water we drink is too high on osmotic pressure. So we're getting external, extracellular hydration, not intracellular hydration. And we're not getting it into the cells. It's sitting outside the cells. I think I have a theory. I think that's contributing a lot to the concussion element.
Ah, yeah.
I think that we're athletes are hydrating themselves, but they're not getting the water inside the cells.
Right.
They're getting outside of it. And I think that's what's causing that jarring
Hmm.
effect on the brain.
Hmm.
Not the whole thing, but
Yep.
I think
Yep.
it's a competing, I
Yeah.
think it's an element.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, your products are definitely one of my favorite. I think you guys have a quality, very high quality products, which I think more and more people are realizing that you got to get quality, like you don't go on Amazon and purchase your supplements because oh, this is where I can find it the cheapest. Because what are you getting? Like, and it's a
Nothing's
big
more
thing to trust
expensive
a
than a
brand
product
now,
that doesn't work.
right? And it's
Yeah, and so
just
that's why
like,
we offer the 365-day money back guarantee.
yeah,
Try it,
that's great.
take it.
Yeah.
If you don't love it, if it doesn't outperform any other product you've taken, then we just give you your money back. It's really simple.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think we owe it. Our goal is to set a standard in the industry that other companies meet. So we're not into
Nice.
meeting standards, we're into setting new ones. You
Yep.
know, the reality is it doesn't matter how healthy of your diet that you're following, you're not going to get everything you need from it.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, the right supplements can really make a difference if you got those other things in your life. And the other element is hey, nutritional supplements aren't inexpensive. It's an added expense that can make a really big difference in your life. And so we believe that it's our priority that we want people to be healthier and live longer. That's why we write the books. That's why we do the emails. That's why we do the social media. We got a 500-page Ultimate
Yeah.
Nutrition Bible. I got a
Yep.
certification course coming out on that whole thing, 3 certifications in one, recognized by ACE, NASIM, all those guys. The reason we do this is because we're in love with making people healthier and happier and living, stronger, longer, better lives. That's our goal, our modus operandus. And when someone spends 20, 30, 40, 50, $100, whatever they spend with us at any given time, I value that money. And I think it's up to us to say, hey, you know what? If we didn't deliver on the promise or your expectations, we'll take that back. We'll thanks, redeploy that money to something else in your life so that you get the right thing. And
Hmm.
I know for a fact that over 99 times out of 100, we deliver the results.
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
statistical fact.
what's cool is BiOptimizers is the only company I mean, I have the supplement graveyard upstairs in the kitchen, so I have a lot of supplements. BiOptimizers is the only one that is utilized daily by people in my entire family, like my daughter, my son, my husband, and myself, right? So my daughter and I use the magnesium every day. My son will occasionally use the sleep breakthrough. We all use the sleep breakthrough. My husband every single morning does the mushroom blend that you do. Same thing. He does his with hot water and mixes some electrolyte stuff into it, and that's his drink. And he used to do coffee, but for the last year and a half, he's been doing that now, and he loves it.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's your products are used daily in my household by almost every family member. My son, not
Wow.
every day, but he's only 11, so he doesn't need to, but
Right.
he does use it. Isn't that cool?
It's super cool. I love those stories. It makes me so happy because
Yeah.
my wife and I were talking about that the other day because we have a whole program for our son. I have a 7-month-old son now,
Yep.
and I've got him on digestive enzymes. I got him on probiotics. We're doing all these. We got some other products that we made to make his formula, so it didn't have any of the garbage in it that's out there. And
Nice. Yeah.
that was a whole adventure.
Yep.
And we were feeding him the other day, and she was looking, and she said to me, it really impacted me because it's right in my heart. She says, gee, I wish every kid was getting this kind of nutrition. And it really hit me, like it really hit me hard that we're so blessed and so fortunate and so lucky. And as my son to get all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, I gotta, that's really a big mission of mine is to make sure that every child gets to have the right nutrition, gets those right elements, because the, the societal benefits moving forward over, if they get that nutrition and that brain development and that nervous system function and all of those elements, the total value of that is it's hard to imagine. And I'm very excited about, we talked beforehand about the current in the United States here, particularly
Hmm.
the focus on the Maha movement, Kennedy and what he's doing. He's one of us. I talked to him in the gym when we were training. Now that he's in Washington, we don't see him too often now. So and
Yeah.
he said he was going to do it. He's delivering to the best of his ability, and a very difficult guy. He's going against the biggest corporations in the world, and he's making strides. And he's the same thing. If we can get our health in order, and to deal with these things, we can have a great thing. He's in his 70s, looks great, does a bit of TRT, takes nutritional supplements, works out, lives a great life, and is contributing to society. And I'm excited to be part of that, making a difference in the world, one family at a time.
Ah, amazing. And for all of you ladies listening, you can get 10% off your order at biooptimizers.com/hormone, nice and easy. And I think it's an automatic discount that happens, right, Wade? Do you know
Mhm.
that? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Like
You put it
there's
in, and
there's no coupon code. It's just the link, right? That brings you to
well, if I think they use your, I think that link will, or they can
I
actually
th
do the other thing. They can, I believe they can set in your code. Let me check to see what it is. I think, yeah. If you put in, yeah, bioptimizers.com hormone, then they definitely get it. I think they can put
yeah.
in hormone as a discount code as
I
well
think
and
they
still
can
get it.
too. Yeah, yeah. I think you can do either one. Yeah.
Either
Yeah.
one, you get it.
Anyways, it'll
Yeah.
be in the show notes, ladies. So, as
Yeah.
always,
Yeah.
thank you so much, Wade. It was great to talk to you again. And I will link to our first episode where we actually really dove into diet and digestive enzymes. And because you guys also have the Masterclass, which is a great product as well for digestive system. Also used in my family a lot. So I'm going to link to that so you guys can go back and listen to that because that one was a really good conversation as well that happened so long ago. So, anyways, hopefully it won't be another 7 years before I get you back on the show again.
Sounds great. I really appreciate it. And thanks for all the great work you're doing. And hopefully we see you down here in the USA soon.
Yes, thanks, Wade.